What is up, Watch fam? Happy Wednesday and welcome to this week's T&H collection review. I am Christian from Theo and Harris, and this series is pretty much so self-explanatory. I take a look at a Watch Geek's collection, a watch geek from anywhere in the world, and I analyze it. I see where I think there are redundancies, and I give my professional advice as to what I think is going to make them happier moving forward in their collecting career. So let's get into it. All right, so before we start, let's do a wristwatch check. I am wearing a Rolex, reference 1601 with a non-luminous dial, and of course, matching non-luminous hands. This is a truly beautiful watch. I actually just sourced this for a client. It's going to be a birthday gift, and I guess the person who will receive this will eventually see this video and get pretty excited. Their watch was featured. So 36 millimeters, white gold bezel, I mean, Jubilee bracelet. This is all around just a miraculous watch. So I couldn't have been more proud to source this. But enough about the watch on my wrist. Let's get into the watches in the review. Okay, so Martin is this week's watch geek. He's a 22-year-old collector based in Germany, and I'll start off with this. For a 22-year-old, damn Martin, you've got a hell of a collection, obviously both objectively in monetary value as well as in taste. I think you've done a really terrific job putting together a collection of pretty significant watches. So I'll read off the rest of the collection, then I'll give some of my thoughts. First, we have an Audemars Piguet 5402 ST. I believe it's a D series, really beautiful watch. Then an Audemars Piguet 14790 ST, a similar yet still very different watch than that. A two-tone Rolex Submariner with a beautiful blue dial, a modern GMT, an IWC Ingenieur 3506, another IWC Ingenieur but a modern iteration, a Breguet 5920, a Zenith Chronomaster, and of course, because no extremely expensive collection would be complete without it, a Seiko SKX. Okay, so damn, I mean, you don't need me to tell you that, but damn, you have put together a collection of very nice watches. I want to talk a little bit about a few of them, one to two of them, and what I think is interesting about your choices. First, we'll start off with the D series, the blue dial, this dark blue, almost grayish dial Royal Oak. For those of you who don't know, Gerald Genta designed the Royal Oak in the early 70s, I believe 72, and it was the first expensive, truly luxurious steel watch. Now, that was a very significant moment for culture, and I think kind of the reevaluation of what people looked for in an expensive wristwatch, and it was no longer only just yellow gold or platinum or white gold. It was now steel. It was now turning your eyes to case finishing and movement and things like that, and that's where the Royal Oak won. The Royal Oak is a truly luxurious watch, but still in steel. And that was a big shift at that point in history, and obviously still we value it very much today. Although it is in the first reference of the Royal Oak production, it has a slightly later dial. The AP symbol is not at 6, but rather at 12. And although that might be a super insignificant change to most of us, that means a lot in value. You can find D-Series Royal Oaks 15, 20, 25, maybe even 30% lower than the first series, the A series, and in better condition. I mean, you can get objectively better watches that aren't as quote-unquote desirable to the big collectors for certainly not an inexpensive price, but a much more affordable price than the A series. So big props picking out the D series. It's a personal favorite of mine, a watch that I absolutely would strive to own. And next I'll go with the Zenith Chronomaster, a very interesting watch, a watch that I wouldn't necessarily expect to be in your collection. I would have expected something much more ritzy, but still, you picked out a value prop. I mean, a triple date moon phase with an El Primero movement by Zenith. There's a lot of value there. I'm not sure what you paid for it, but I know these watches can be had around $4,000 or $5,000. You may have paid a lot more, so maybe the value isn't necessarily there. But for those of you who are watching, keep this watch in mind for a kick-ass chronograph with other complications at a relatively affordable price. I love to see this watch in your collection. It adds great diversity, I think. It adds depth, so props. And next, I want to talk about the IWC Ingenieur 3506. This is a watch that confuses a lot of people, including myself, as far as the history of it. So Genta designed the Ingenieur SL. This was a watch that did not have great commercial success. I think it was because it was too big and bulky. It just didn't hit at the time. So to gain some mass market appeal, IWC released this reference, the one Martin has. It's a thinner watch, although it maintains the same sporty design that the Genta, watch had. It's done in a much more, thin and fine way. Very similar to the original Royal Oak or the original Patek Philippe Nautilus, another Genta design. You've got yours in a black dial. It's truly beautiful. I mean, I'm a huge fan of this watch. But moving on into your thoughts. I know you're considering liquidating your IWC Ingenieur, the 3506, as well as your white dial Royal Oak, the three-hander, the 14790. And although I think that those are both watches that are definitely worthy of a collection and to keep basically forever, I also do understand where you're coming from. As far as the Royal Oak, you have another. You have your 5402. So although I absolutely think your white dial three-hand, 14790 is an amazing watch, I mean a watch that I would absolutely love to have, I see why you don't want the redundancy. Maybe the dial color, the change in dial color just isn't enough of a change for you. So props. Anyone should buy that watch from you. That should be an easy sell. But you have my reluctant T&H stamp of approval to liquidate that watch. Next, with your IWC, do I think you're a little crazy? Yeah, I put it this way. I prefer the white dial Royal Oak, the 14790, over the IWC, but because you have nothing that really competes with the IWC apart from the other IWC Ingenieur, which is modern, so it's so different, it's tough. But the reason that I'm giving you the T&H stamp of approval to sell this watch is because you clearly, want to. I feel like your personal values are saying, let it go, move on. But I think that you recognize the significance of the watch and almost feel like you're not supposed to want to liquidate it. To which I say, screw that. Do what you want. Buy, sell, own, whatever the hell you want. Don't let significance, if it doesn't mean anything to you, or doesn't mean much to you, or doesn't mean enough to you, don't let that dictate, what you own and where you're tying up large sums of cash. So although most people that are watching this are going to recognize the beauty and the significance of this IWC, I am going to have to say, go ahead and liquidate it as well. Okay, now I'm going to go into this Breguet conundrum, which isn't a topic that you brought up. It's not something that you highlighted in your email, but you have this Breguet, and I feel like it's so interesting. It seems out of context. The Breguet does not seem like a watch that you would own. You have two Royal Oaks, you have two Ingenieurs, you have a sub and a GMT. This Breguet just seems so out of your realm of taste. It doesn't seem like a watch that you would want. But because you do want it and own it, I'm even that much more impressed. To talk about it for a second. It's a 34mm dress watch from probably one of the most well-respected historical companies of all time, with a guilloche dial and an automatic movement and a concealed case back. This is a bizarre watch, in my opinion. I would think it was a manual wind watch, but it's not. I would think it had an exposed case back because it's a modern, well-finished watch, but it doesn't. So these are kind of little nuances that surprise me, but and some of it that I like. I like that there's a concealed case back because it reminds me of a true vintage, watch, a true vintage Breguet. My problem with this watch, truthfully, is the design. I don't love it. I don't love the balance or lack thereof between Breguet, the subdial, and the date. I'm just not a fan. It kind of throws me off. So I did look for another Breguet, and I didn't have one in mind. I looked for another Breguet that I would be able to stand behind even more, a Breguet that I could even more passionately speak about. And it was an interesting path that, bizarrely enough, led me to eBay. One of the sketchiest places to look for or buy watches in the world. Not that other places are all too much better. There are plenty of bad people everywhere, but still, I was surprised that I found something that I truly loved on eBay. So check this out. It's another 18-karat gold Breguet. It's an ultra thin. It's a manual movement. It's without that extra complication. The Roman numerals on the outside, and I just feel like the Breguet hands, I mean, really what they're most famous for, really take center stage here. What is most impressive, I think, is this Tiffany stamp dial, which to most people probably doesn't mean anything, but to me it means a whole lot. Maybe I'm just a victim of great marketing, but I still love that extra detail. That look closer, it's Tiffany dynamic. So, once again, maybe I'm just a victim to good marketing, but this particular Breguet definitely does pique my interest more than the one that you have. That doesn't mean sell yours for this one. I'm so not saying that. I was just proposing another Breguet, one that I can enjoy completely as opposed to just partially. But still, the core point here is that you have a Breguet. You have something that is so different from what someone would expect your taste to find you in. So big props on that. So that's it, Martin. I gave you my reluctant stamp of approval to liquidate two incredible watches, 2 watches that will hopefully find some very appreciative and lucky homes. And I gave you huge props for owning something that I think that most people wouldn't dare to, something that is so classic and so isolating, that has no sports appeal. I think that's just personally so respectable in any watch collector and in any gentleman. So that's it. Congratulations, Martin, on your beautiful watches. Thank you all for watching. Please subscribe to our channel if you like this video, and don't forget to check out the watches in the watch shop at theoandharris.com.